right. Well, welcome to the show. My name is Cody, your host. My special guest today, I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Maynard. I'm the broker owner of Coldwell Banker, Heart of Oklahoma.
Awesome. Well, thanks for hopping on with this, Stan. So how'd you get into the business?
I've basically been in the business since I was about 10 years old. That's when my mother started in the business, and the phone rang out at our house. We would answer the phone. Of course, not having a real estate license, obviously at 10, we would just have to answer at that point, Heart of Oklahoma Real Estate. Just a second, let me get you somebody, So I learned young that I couldn't tell anybody anything about real estate without my license.
That's
and
awesome.
I got licensed when I was about 19, 20 in there somewhere. So I've been doing this 33 years, give or take.
So it's just kind of a family business, and you just kind of naturally kind of went in that direction. Well, that's awesome. So how many agents and kind of offices do you lead to kind of give the viewers an idea of what your world looks like?
We have two offices. We have one in Purcell and one in Norman. Purcell was our original and our first office. We have roughly 15 agents between the two offices, and I am the broker of record for the company.
Awesome. Now, I think it's interesting the fact that you were the kid coming up and parents were running kind of the office and you got that exposure. I'm curious to know, because I've got kiddos myself, and that's kind of my aspirations is allowing them one day to kind of help. Would you say that typically goes well? It obviously went well in your experience. Have you tried that with your kids, or have you had any other experiences where maybe that doesn't go well, or is that kind of a pretty good solid?
That's really kind of more of a family deal. My wife works here as well, so honestly we spend almost 24/7 with each other, and it works fine. I know a lot of people that that probably wouldn't work if they spent that much time with their spouse. So my oldest did study for the real estate. He was going to do it during the summers, but then he ended up deciding to do pre-law. So he's doing internships in Texas. So nobody else has gotten a license yet. Well, my wife has her license, but none of my kids.
Gotcha. Not yet anyway. So that's
not
cool.
Yet.
So how did you kind of transition from, an agent to a broker? I know that's kind of different for a lot of folks. Sometimes they just keep a real estate career as an agent, or some, how was that revolution for you? Maybe kind of tell that story and kind of why.
It really was continuing my education to get my broker's license and to, to know more. As I got my broker's license, shortly after that, we decided to expand into Norman. So it was good that I had my broker's license, because at that point I became the broker of record just for this office. My mother was the broker of record for the Norman office, and then for the company altogether. And probably 5 or 10 years ago, we switched it around to where I'm the one in charge. I think, anyway, I'm in charge.
Gotcha. That's neat. So what were some kind of like early wins, maybe, and like maybe some early struggles? Did you like it as an agent? Was it just part of kind of an expansion thing with the family where you kind of naturally stepped into that leadership role, or?
Yeah, it was. It was something that was needed, and just, to give both my parents have their license. My dad worked for the federal government for 32 years and retired, and he got his license 4 or 5 years before that. So it was definitely family oriented, family run. We've always tried to treat our agents like family, and help them out as much as possible. Especially once we did the Norman office, it just made more sense for me to be in charge. And once you get 3 decades worth of experience, you have a lot of answers to a lot of questions.
It's a lot of experience, man. So for you though, like, was there something where when you stepped into that new kind of job title or role from being an agent, that you were like, hey, this transfers very well? And then maybe was there some other areas like, hey, I got to skill up, I got to go read some books or to kind of step into that role? What were some of the early wins and kind of struggles that you had to work through?
Not really as far as the education went. Just and not trying to brag on myself, but when you're around it all your life, I mean, honestly, you just pick up a whole bunch of stuff and you hear about it all day, every day. So you learn a lot of it, whether you want to or not. So there wasn't any change when the agent started coming to me to ask questions. There wasn't any change, and they were asking me questions anyway, long before I became broker of record. So there was times, when you're 20 some years old and you've got a 40-year-old coming to you for advice, that there were times that they were, the agent might go, well, what do you actually know?
Yeah.
When they know I've been in it, but still you get that age break and they start wondering, how knowledgeable are you?
Yeah. Where a lot of that is just probably dinner conversation, table talk at your
Yes.
With the experience that your family all has, and it's just things that you sound like you absorbed in at an early age, knew just from
Right.
being
Yes. Yeah.
That's pretty neat. A lot of folks are probably like, nah, would not be able to relate to that. That's awesome that you've got that rich background. How would you describe your management philosophy, man?
Again, like I mentioned earlier, we really work for a family oriented. We've always tried to treat our agents as part of a family, help them out where we can. We've let agents bring their kids in and use our computers and our copiers when they're writing school reports, and never balked at that. Never said, hey, that's our paper, what are you doing? Or those are our computers, why do you think you can be here at 9 o'clock at night and letting your kid do it? As far as taking care of the agents goes, you might call us a little bit hands off, but I always know what my agents are doing. I know when they don't have to come in and say, I've got a new listing, but I know that they've got a new listing and I know what's going on. So I keep on top of what's going on without being in their hip pocket the whole time. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it sounds like you let them do their job, but you're there to, oversee, support, and supervise, be of assistance when needed.
Right. Yes.
Awesome. So you obviously went the franchise route, whether it was your decision or not. That's definitely one of the questions I know a lot of brokers that are getting licensed or an answer they may, or a question they may have is, do I go the franchise route? Do I not go the franchise route? What's kind of your opinion on all that?
I go back and forth. We've been franchised with Coldwell Banker right at 20 years. No, I take that back. Probably 25 years in there. Internationally recognized. And so you get a lot of name recognition. You get people calling in from California because they sold their house in California with Coldwell Banker, so they look for the Coldwell Banker office in Oklahoma. So you do get some of that. Obviously, there are more expenses when you're franchised because they don't give you the franchise for free, nor do they let you close sales without, getting a percentage of everything. So pluses and minuses, it depends on what your market is and what you're shooting for.
Good answer. Now that makes a lot of sense for their market, what they've got going. I guess, yeah, it's going to make there's a lot of determining factors inside there. I like your answer. So what do you think has been kind of your key to success? Like, what do you think makes a successful broker? If you can kind of summarize it in your opinion.
The successful broker?
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's being available to your agents. I've had a lot of agents from other companies over the years tell me, I can never get a hold of my broker. Or if I call my broker and ask him a question, my broker tells me, I don't know the answer to that. I'll get back with you. So having the knowledge and being able to answer their questions quickly, I think is very important. And no, I'm not saying I always know the answers. There are times that I have to go, let me double check on that. But it's definitely a same day answer when somebody has a question for me.
I agree. That's great. Great answer. Availability. That's key. That's what we're there for. What do you what would you say is kind of your most favorite aspect of, leading an office, being a broker, and maybe what's kind of your least favorite? If you could write that off the job description, you'd take it off tomorrow.
Least favorite is probably recruiting.
Yeah.
And that's, it's so hard for me. I think in the older generation, and I do finally qualify as that older generation, tooting your own horn type thing is something that, we were taught, don't do that. Let other people talk about you, word of mouth, things like that. In these days, it's, hey, I got a new listing, and it's on Facebook, Twitter, and it's, I sold a house, and it's just, flies out there nonstop. And sometimes I just look at it and go, okay. So that's the hardest part for me is the tooting my own horn, type. Yes, I did multi-million dollars. Yes, I did this. Yes, I did that.
Constant self-promotion.
Constant selling yourself, it is very different now. Years ago, and 20 plus years ago is what I'm talking about. It was very much based on your experience and your success. And really these days it's more based on how much money can you spend on advertising to get your leads, to get your contacts.
Yeah. I definitely agree with a lot of that. Did you mention kind of your favorite? That's your least. Let's say recruiting is kind of throw that out.
Favorite. I really do like helping first-time home buyers. Whether they're a 20-year-old looking to buy their first property, or whether they're 50 or 60 years old looking to buy their first property, and helping to educate them about the process. Talking to them about, again, here are the steps that you need to go through. Here are the things that are going to occur, in getting them to understand the process before you go out and start showing them houses and telling them, hey, you can afford $200,000, spend $199,000.
Education process. No, that's good. So what does your support system look like today? Like you mentioned, you got the family kind of in the business. Do you guys have, what's the setup like in terms of somebody's coming into it knowing you're obviously probably have more support than somebody coming into the business would need probably, but what does that look like when you maybe kind of just started off, and then kind of what you guys have today?
When we pick up a new agent, I always tell them that I'm more one-on-one oriented training. So if you want training on FHA, or you want training on the contracts, or you want training on anything, help on, I'll go with them to listings. I'll sit with them, help them write up offers. But the one-on-one, I think, is by far the best way to train a new agent. I know, there's a lot of them that go sit in classes for weeks, getting their training. And I don't think you get what you need there. You need to be out trying to get a listing. Even if I have to go with you and answer questions, as a new agent, you want to be familiar with your forms, and you want to be familiar with what you're going to say. But I don't think you're going to be able to go on your first listing and answer every question that a seller has. I'm sure there are some people out there that are able to do that, but typically, they worked at a gas station, or they worked at Dillard's, and now they've got the real estate license, and they don't have any background in real estate. So they really need, some help. And that's what we try to do and try to give them.
I love that. It reminds me, I'm trying to think of it, if I don't butcher it off the top of my head, there's a saying where if you tell me, I'll remember, or I'll forget, I think it goes. You tell me, I forget. You show me, I remember. I do, I understand. And I think
a man to fish, he eats for a day. Teach a man to fish, he eats for the rest of his life. Yes. Yes.
Summary, that kind of sounds like your guys' training process with it, which is sounds
Yes.
like it's really highly effective. So awesome. What do you think are like the biggest misconceptions that people have about, being a broker that you'd want to, solve for them now? Hey, let me let you in on the secret. It's not this, or what do you think, if you could dispel some of those misbeliefs out there, what it is or takes to be a broker that you might help the audience with?
So your broker is not making money hand over fist. He's not getting rich off you. He or she is not getting rich off you as an agent. We're all there obviously to make money. And I've always, again, looked at it, if my agents are successful, then I'm successful. So, if you're an agent and you work for me and you fail, that doesn't do me any good at all. So, but again, the broker is just not making money hand over fist. That's, you hear that a lot from, well, my broker is just making so much money off me.
Not
Got to
true.
sit down and run the numbers on it.
Okay. Thank you for dispelling that one. What would you say is your favorite piece of technology, or just kind of a device that you use like on a daily and you would not want to run your brokerage without, whatever that might be?
Well, there's two of them: cell phone, obviously, and then e-sign, electronic signature. That's just so beneficial. When I started, to go back, you kids these days don't know how good you have it. Back when I started, we didn't even have fax machines. When we got the first fax machines, they were I can't even think of what they call the paper now, but it came out in a roll. And so you would have to unroll it and get it smoothed out to be able to see it and make copies of it. And you'd have to cut it into sheets of paper. But to us, when that first came out, that fax machine, being able to fax something to somebody and them sign and fax it back to us was just, man, I don't know how we lived without that. And here today, I can send you a contract, and 5 seconds later, I've got it back, and you've already signed it, and you're done.
Yeah.
So that's just great especially when you're dealing with people out of state.
Yeah. So would you say technology has helped things in the real estate world?
To a point. It has been very beneficial and improved our ability to function and our ability to complete tasks. I do think technology has become a crutch, and it does give people a little bit too much confidence. Again, I can remember when, if it was outside your market area, you didn't touch it. Whether it was a listing or a sale, if it wasn't in your area, you let it go, because you didn't know how you were gonna handle it. 2 hours away, if you had to run to them every time you need something signed, back and forth like that, it wasn't logical. And these days, there is that point to where people will take listings anywhere or sell property anywhere, that sometimes I think they're going too far, traveling too far.
Yeah. I'm glad that you brought that up, because that's one of the whenever we had first met and kind of had a conversation, you kind of told me some stories of kind of, for your market, what other agents and what expectations. You've had agents just come in and drop keys off on your. Talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. Years ago, again, back when MLS was a book that came out monthly, Norman city agents, let's say that, there were some that would come all the way to Purcell and take a listing. And as they drove out of town, they would stop at our office, come in our door and say, "Hi, I'm Fred with XYZ Real Estate Company. Here's the key to the house on 4th Street. I just listed it. I don't want to come back until it closes." And you're just kind of looking at them going, does your client know this? No, but the client thought by listing with a big city agent, they would get more exposure, which, especially back then, if I was looking for a house in Purcell, I didn't call somebody in Norman. I went to Purcell because there weren't computers. There wasn't everything on Zillow. And so you had to go to the local markets. So it always amazed me when people would list with a big city company because they were going to get more exposure. Well, great. You're going to get exposed to 4,000 people that are looking for houses in Norman. You're in for sale.
Yeah.
You're in Wayne. They're not looking for your house.
And you keep that door open too for any other surrounding brokerages or anybody that, hey, if they take something that's just, like you said, out of their market area and they want that customer to get that great local service or whatever, you welcome them to come in.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, there's nothing you can do. There's nothing you can do about it. And it's everybody's business practice, you know, and that doesn't happen anymore. And like I said, with computers now, you know, people take a listing 3 hours away or sell a property 3 hours away, and at least they have more access to the information, and they can give knowledgeable advice to their clients most of the time. Not always, I don't think, but.
So what's your market prediction, kind of with everything that's on the horizon, everything that's, you know, people are talking about? You kind of see the, you know, the different changes now. We're obviously going through some sort of change. What would be your kind of what's happening now, kind of a summary of it, and then where you kind of see it, you know, anticipating for the future?
Unfortunately, I think we're 1 to 2 years from a pretty substantial downturn in Oklahoma. It may be nationwide, but I think we're probably in that 12 to 24 month before we have a pretty good setback. Just looking at the news this morning, inflation was 4.3%. That's not quite dangerous yet, but it's getting there. So if inflation goes up, I think we'll get hit pretty hard. Especially, I also think oil and gas is going to go down again in the next year or two. So where oil and gas goes, Oklahoma follows. So that's my view on the economic side. On the real estate side, I don't really know. I've been hearing again for 20 years that real estate agents are going away. You know, there's always somebody saying real estate agents are the next dinosaur. It may change to the standpoint where car salesmen have gone to, where they are on an hourly wage and then they get, you know, a $200 or $300 bonus per car they sell, and the more they sell, the bigger their bonus. We may be getting closer to something like that with Zillow and Redfin and some of these big mega corporations that are coming in, because they're going to have to hire local agents in some way. They're going to have to hire local agents, because you're not going to be able to list a house in Wayne, Oklahoma through Zillow. Who's going to show it? You know, so we're always going to be needed, whether it's the commission based that we are right now. That I think eventually is going to go away. Could, like I say, it could be 10, 20 years, but I think we're looking at it.
But you don't, I mean, you think it's probably 10 to 20 years out. You don't see anything happening anytime sooner?
It may. Now, bigger markets, it may happen faster. Rural markets, I just don't see it happening that fast. Again, just from the standpoint of where do you find the agent that's going to go to Alec, Oklahoma, or Wayne or Paola, some of those small towns? I think it's going to be a lot more difficult to find agents that are willing to go down there for $300 to show a house, you know, sell a house.
Okay. My next question kind of ties right into that then with, I think, let me ask you this. If you were to give advice based upon the, you know, the information that you have, and you obviously, you've been around and doing this for a really long time, almost to a point where I'd say folks that have that experience and kind of see through, you know, around corners almost. For you, if you're giving advice to, let's say, two different people, first an agent, knowing what you know is going to be impacting and, you know, potentially affecting this market here, what advice would you give them if they're just coming into the business, or maybe they're existing and thinking about, hey, what should I be doing? And then my next question for you is, what advice would you give a broker, because of the knowledge base that you've come from? I think you qualify you to speak to a lot of these guys. Maybe they're just coming into the business, or maybe they're existing. What advice would you give an agent? What advice would you give a broker right now?
A new broker, my opinion as a broker, I should know what every one of my agents is doing. As a new broker, if you're going to come in, you need to make sure you can manage the agents that you have. So getting 80 agents or 100 agents under you under one broker, I don't see how they have any idea what's going on there. So I think you need to be careful on that, having so many agents underneath you that you can't answer the questions, or you don't know what your agents are doing. So now if you've got a broker and they've got 5 assistant brokers underneath them to handle all those agents, hey, that's great. From that standpoint, a new agent coming in, takes money to make money. You've got to be willing to spend some money to get some, especially in this market, whether it's buying leads or whether it's just advertising, that you're going to have to spend that money ahead of schedule and then make it up in the end, and be ready for change. You can't go, hey, I knew how to do MLS and now the MLS has changed, I'm not going to learn it. We went to a new MLS system, I'm mad, I'm not going to learn how to do that. That's a simple example, but like I say, as Zillow steps into the market, you're going to have to learn how to deal with them and Redfin and any of those others. You can't just say, well, this is the way I've always done it, and this is how I'm going to continue to do it. I guess you can, but you probably won't be in the business for very long after that. So,
Good advice. Good advice. Last question here for you in closing. Van, if you weren't such a great real estate broker and doing what you're doing there with your operations and your team, what would you be doing?
Sitting on a beach.
Sitting on a beach?
Sitting on a beach. I don't know. I've thought about that over the years. I'd intended to go into banking when I got out of college. Graduated right along with the banking and oil bust. So, had people with 15 years of experience applying for entry-level jobs that I was applying for. So, and I'd already been doing real estate during the summers while I was in college. So, I really don't know as far as that goes. I'd probably be, working for some larger corporation in management at this point, something along that line.
Leading people just with a different outfit. Yeah.
Just a different way of doing it.
Well, awesome. Well, Van, I appreciate you coming on the show and visiting with us. Was anything you kind of wanted to let any of the viewers know, kind of where to find you, or anything you'd want to add? Or
there's always something new happening. Like I said, I've been doing this a long time. Last year I got shot at. Was working with a client who had they'd moved to West Virginia, and they'd had their house rented out when I listed it, and we got it under contract, so the tenants were moving out, and I decided, I'll go out there and check the house, make sure the tenants had got out, because they told me they were going to finish this weekend, and so I'd go make sure that they were out. So as I pull up to the house, I can see in the backyard, and there's a 2018, 2019 Ford F-150 Platinum Edition 4-door. All the doors are open, parked in the backyard. And I thought, well, they've got a few things left. They're just finishing up. So I pull in, park, get out, walk around the house to where their truck is, walk in through the back door, and turn the corner looking into the kitchen. And as I turn, I say hello, because I didn't want to scare them. Didn't want to startle them, because I figured it'd be the mother and her daughter that were the ones that were finishing up the moving. So I didn't want to scare them. So I just kind of said, hello, and turned the corner. And there was a guy there. Stove was pulled out, dishwasher was pulled out, laid on its face. And of course he yells, F this, and kind of takes off. And I went, I think I'm in the wrong place at this point. So I headed back to the truck and calling 911. they come flying by me in their pickup truck, and I followed them. About 3 miles into following them, they opened their back window of their truck, electric back window, and took a shot at me.
Oh my gosh.
And I'm on with the sheriff's department at this point, on my hands free. And I went, I think they just shot at me. And the little lady goes, well, sir, at this point, we're going to have to ask you to back off. I said, I've already done that. Thank you. But I've backed off. I didn't let them go, though. 12 miles later, the police caught up with them.
They were apprehended. Wow. So, based upon your information, I'm sure that kind of led to that's crazy.
Yeah, I stayed with them until the police got there, following them until the police got there. But it was interesting, they hadn't shot at me, I'd have probably let them go at that point, but then they just made me mad. I was like, no.
Did the owners contact you afterwards and say thank you for?
Oh yeah, they said on my Zillow review, they said I went above and beyond, what most real estate agents would do. They didn't get into the fact that I stopped them from having all their stuff stolen. But it was just so odd to walk in on that, and then number two, have them take a shot at you, and then get there, and the police like, oh well, these three guys are career criminals, got this rap sheet this long, and wow. I don't think
you help put them behind bars. You help take a criminal off the street, man. You're the real
probably not
in that community is a safer place because of you, fam.
Yeah, and probably they're going to do 0 time. It's just because it was a minor crime, they're not going to do any more jail time. They'd all done jail time before. So it's just kind of one of those deals. But anyway,
I'm sure they'll think twice when they see one of your listings.
That's right.
Hey, I know that guy.
Into my houses.
There you go.
We'll chase you down.
Yeah, that's a good story, man. Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. So Purcell and Norman, if you guys got real estate needs or questions, this guy answers his phone. He's a broker that is available. A website maybe or telephone number you want to direct folks to, or
office numbers 405-527-3012. Website is www.cbhart.com. And we're available all the time.
All right. Well, thanks for coming on, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Cody.